Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and today it is yet another mock draft, 2 rounds, 64 picks, 63 picks actually, because the Dolphins, naughty boys, but thank you for coming back. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Working still on my deep dive series where I'm ranking every player possible that I can get my hands on, grading them all out. It's coming, guys. It's a lot of work, but in those gradings, it helps me sort of project better for these mock drafts. So that's what I'm pretty much going off of. So let me know what you think I did for your team. I got the chapters up there for you guys, so you can kind of fly through this a little bit more. I do appreciate, though, the longer you watch, the better it is for me. So, maybe listen to a couple of my explanations for some of these picks that you might find to be a little more controversial. But there aren't going to be any trades. I didn't trade any of the players in this one just because it's sort of like, what's the value of the guys that are on the trade block right now? DeAndre Hopkins, Aaron Rodgers. The compensation seems to be all over the place. So I sort of just left it. Right now. So let's see sort of how this all works out with just sort of leaving things as is, which isn't really my style, but I'm trying to make it my style just for this video. Let's see. Run it. Roll it. Let's go. All right, so it seems like the first 4 picks are pretty standard at this point. We feel like it's going to be 3 quarterbacks and Will Anderson. The Colts might trade up, but like I said, didn't really do any trades here. Just because, you don't really know what the value is going to be for some of these players left that are getting traded. The draft really starts at number 5, and I have Will Levis going number 5 to Seattle. The talk that Seattle's having of, we don't know when we're going to be in this position to be able to take a quarterback this high. I think there's a lot to that, especially because, you have Geno Smith, who's played literally one good season his whole career. And he fell off towards the end of that season, which was the last season before. So do you bring in Will Levis as sort of like a security blanket in the event that Geno Smith struggles this year, and then good thing we got Levis? Or do you go, hey, Levis can sit. It's fine. This is a luxury pick for us anyway, because we were a better team without the guy that we traded to get this pick anyway. So it's really a free pick at the end of the day. So you take the position with the most value that you can probably potentially get the most out of long term, and that's at the quarterback position, especially with Geno Smith, who's on a 3-year deal. It's really a 2-year deal, and Levis can sit. I think there's like this weird thing about the way that the draft community looks at these positions and goes, well, Richardson's going to sit, which he probably will behind Gardner Minshew. But, CJ Stroud and Bryce Young are going to play right away. Will Levis will play right away. It's like, that's not necessarily true. A team like Seattle could take Will Levis. A team like Detroit could take Will Levis and go, cool, he'll sit for a year. And then if he's as ready as a rookie quarterback is right now, he'll be even more ready when we put him in, because he's going to sit. He's going to learn. He's going to go through some NFL training camp. He's going to go through some NFL practices during a season. He's going to go through all this kind of stuff to then be finally ready maybe in year 2 or year 3. That's an old strategy on how teams dealt with quarterbacks, even ones they took really high. So I just, we saw it with Carson Palmer. We saw it with, just go through the list of players in the 90s and early 2000s who turned out to be pretty good. So I think that that's something that Seattle will probably end up doing, especially because there's all the question marks around the next pick, Jalen Carter. I just think the upside is too much for Detroit to pass up. And again, Detroit is in the same situation I feel like Seattle's in, where this is a luxury pick for them. So why not swing for the fences? You became a better team than you were because of the trade. You were able to use the draft capital prior to this to make yourself better. So if Jalen Carter ends up working out, you've just gotten the best player in this class. And you've gotten a guy who's going to be like a DeForest Buckner, Chris Jones type of a player for the next, decade? Amazing. And it's a position of need for them, the interior defensive line. They don't necessarily even need to be done taking interior defensive line. They can go with a more traditional nose tackle and stuff, because that's really, from looking at their roster, and I was doing my my rankings, so I was like grading out players and stuff, they could very well be looking at that interior defensive line multiple times in this draft. They got the Raiders, Christian Gonzalez, corner. The Raiders corners were very good against the run last year. They graded out quite high in terms of against the run. Amik Robertson, Nate Hobbs, Duke Shelley had really good grading coverage, but he was really the only one that did it. So you really need to get an alpha in there, and I think that's Christian Gonzalez would be a good fit for that. I think he's not going to. I think it's sort of like a Derek Stingley, Ahmad Gardner type of a deal, where he may not be the better of the two corners year one, kind of like we saw with Stingley and Sauce. But I think as the careers go, I think him and Witherspoon will sort of level out and even out. So it's just a matter of how they're going to scheme these players. Really, I think it's going to be what determines their long-term success. And then Tyree Wilson going to the Falcons. There's just too much upside there. Too much upside with Tyree Wilson. And Atlanta just needs that edge rush position. Pair him up with Arnold Ebiketie. You got Lorenzo Carter, who's like a hybrid off-ball linebacker type in there as well. And you can kick Wilson into maybe a 5 technique on some of the base formations. There's just a lot you can do with Wilson in his rookie year that then allows you to determine what you want to do with him long term. And up next is the Bears. Peter Skoronski. His versatility, I think, is going to be the key for them. He's a great pass blocker. He graded out really high in pass blocking. So I think that putting him on the right tackle position, maybe even kicking him into guard if you need to, it just makes too much sense for them. And the Bears, I think, are more focused on putting out the best 5 offensive linemen that they can to help Justin Fields out. So this is really a step in that direction. Devon Witherspoon going to the Eagles. I think that's an easy pick for them, especially because they got 2 really expensive corners, veterans, that they're getting them at a much cheaper rate just because, they took pay cuts. But, you want to build a youth movement in there, especially as that division gets stronger and stronger. The receivers there get better and better. You want the versatility, and Devon Witherspoon could very well be the Ahmad Gardner of this draft. And then Paris Johnson to the Titans. Same kind of argument. They need a tackle. And if they're not trading up to get to get Anthony Richardson, then keep with what you were doing before, which is build around Derrick Henry and Malik Willis. I think that's sort of a guy that's gone forgotten in this whole process. Jackson Smith and Jigba going to the Texans. Build around your quarterback, your new quarterback. I think there's enough depth at the edge rushers and the defensive line in general that you could get that in the second round, third round on day 2 and still feel really good about what you got. I think D'Amico Ryans being a defensive head coach and understanding how to develop defensive players could use those day 2 picks to look at the upside of some of these edge rushers and then build around that. Broderick Jones to the Jets. I think that's just an easy pick. This is the reason why they're holding on to that pick, is to get one of those 3 offensive tackles, whichever one is there, whichever one is the highest on their board when they get there. That's what they're going to take. I think there's an outside shot that's Osiris Torrance as well. But going with Broderick Jones, a more traditional tackle. Don't really know what's going to happen with Mekhi Becton. I guess they're hoping that he sticks around, but if he doesn't, then you got that solution there. And then Elijah Vera Tucker, who might be playing tackle, might be playing guard. I think that if they solely set in on Elijah Vera Tucker being a tackle, then I think that this would be Osiris Torrance. But until that's completely decided, I think it's sort of another thing like the Bears where it's like get your best 5 guys on the field. And then Joey Porter to the Patriots. It's becoming a favorite of a lot of people in the draft community. It's just starting to make more sense the more that you plug it in and think about it. High character player, second generation player. It just screams Belichick, especially with Jonathan Jones likely filling that Devin McCourty role now going forward. You need a guy to go out there, pair with the 2 Jones guys from last year. Nolan Smith going to the Packers. This is the guy that you send out there to pass rush, especially in his rookie year. Rashawn Gary got that injury late in the year, so you're going to need somebody to come in early in the year. To pair with Preston Smith, you got Kingsley Nagbari, who's going to be a nice early down guy. So this just makes a lot of sense for the long term for Green Bay. And then Osiris Torrance, there he is, going to Washington. Again, same sort of thing with the Bears, the Titans, and the Jets. Get your best 5 guys on the field. And I think that now with Eric Bieniemy there, you want to focus on that offensive line. They already signed Wiley. They signed Nick Gates. Who else did they get? I swear they got another offensive lineman. I could be wrong. But you get Osiris Torrance. He plugs in at one of those guard positions. And then you build around that. With him and Charles Leno, maybe they're anchor that left side of the offensive line. And then the center, right guard, right tackle, just the next 3 best guys. And here's Pittsburgh going Darnell Wright. It just makes all the sense in the world, right? All the sense in the world. I feel like I was the first person to do Quentin Johnson to the Lions. I'm going to stand by it. I feel like I got there first, and I'm going to stand by that pick happening at 18. It makes so much sense the more I thought about it. He's a different type of receiver than what you have in Jamison Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown. He brings a different dynamic to the offense, but he's still very explosive, still very fast, very athletic. Can get the ball in his hands early, get some run after the catch. Makes Jared Goff's job easier in so many different facets of the game. And then Anton Harrison going to the Bucks. They need offensive linemen. Shaq Mason gone, Donovan Smith gone. Get somebody in there opposite Tristan Wirfs, really help him out on the other side of the offensive line. Lucas Van Ness takes a bit of a tumble, but Seattle happy to scoop him up, and you pair him with Boya Mafe, Uchenna Nwosu as a nice little 3-man group, and he can kick inside. You can put him and Draymond Jones together as like interior guys on those third downs and not really lose a whole lot in terms of interior defensive pass rush. Bijan Robinson going to the Chargers. With Austin Eckler seemingly on his way out, this makes just all the sense in the world. And then we get a bit of a run there on receivers. Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison. Both of those guys seem to be really good fits for these teams. I think you could flip them and it would still make sense to me. Zay Flowers guy, the opposite of what you have in Rashad Bateman, sort of closer to what you thought you were going to get out of Devin Duvernay, whose contract is coming up, and Zay Flowers is a better version of him, I would say at this point, at least projection-wise. So you can bring him in and then you let Duvernay go, or you can bring Duvernay back on a short-term deal if Zay Flowers still works out. It gives you a lot of options on the offense and gives another weapon for Lamar Jackson, who, is he staying? Is he going? I don't know. And then Jordan Addison, got to get somebody else out there with Justin Jefferson for the long term. A good compliment for Kirk Cousins to work with in what could be Kirk Cousins' final year as the quarterback of the Vikings. Here's the Jaguars taking the best player available on the board, Brian Branch. In terms of against the pass, against the run, I was looking at some of his grades, again, doing my grading ranking, starting that for my deep dive series coming up in the summer. He graded out great. Significantly better than almost everyone else coming out of this class at the safety position. So, jump on him, and then the drop-off after him at the safety position is significant. So, you've solved that problem now, hopefully, for the next at least 5 years. And then, you have a guy who's versatile. You can play him pretty much anywhere on that defense. Deonte Banks going to the Giants. He does have a habit of taking plays off, which really hurt, I think, his grades in coverage and in the run game. But when he was on, he was on. And so I think that's something that's going to cause it. If he was somebody who you didn't have those issues about effort at some points, he probably would be going where we see Devin Witherspoon going. But I think Wink Martindale is going to see a guy you can put opposite of Adoree Jackson, something they don't really have. Then Cordell Flott, who was their best graded corner last year, can play in that slot role. And then you got a nice little group there that's significantly better with just this one signing. And then you got Aruarie, who had a really bad year last year, but could he bounce back? You got some options in that secondary, and Wink Martindale loves to have a variety of defensive backs. Michael Mayer to the Cowboys just makes sense. I feel like it just makes sense the more I think about it. DeJuan Jones, tackle, going to the Bills. I was looking at their offensive line, and I don't think enough people talk about that right tackle position could be an issue. Spencer Brown is, he'll have good games, he'll have really bad games. I think you bring in DeJuan Jones, who's just a big time mauler, and it'll really help with the run game as well. And I think that's something Buffalo is really looking towards. Dalton Kincaid to the Bengals. Love the fit. I think that's again, and they investing in weapons for Joe Burrow to just really help that passing game out. It really will open up the running game for Joe Mixon if he's even around. Myles Murphy to the Saints. Best edge rusher left on the board. Brian Breezy, interior defensive lineman, going to the Eagles. A good compliment to Jordan Davis. And then Adeto Adebayor to the Chiefs. I think his versatility is something they're really going to like, especially with Spagnuolo, who might just be drafting him to be like that Justin Tuck, who he can put on the defensive end. He can kick inside to defensive tackle for that NASCAR formation that he specialized in when he was the defensive coordinator for those Giants Super Bowl team. I think Adebayor just fits with what Spagnuolo likes. Getting here into the second round, Cam Smith takes the best corner on the board. Kalijah Cansey takes a bit of a tumble. He may not make it this far. If I was doing trade-ups, he'd be somebody that I think could get traded up for. But he ends up here with the Texans. Jalen Hyatt with the Cardinals. We know that DeAndre Hopkins is pretty much on his way out, so you want to take the best receiver that's out there, I think, with the second round pick. And then whatever pick you get for DeAndre Hopkins, you might be looking at receiver with that one as well, because that receiver room's not that great. Really, they're not. Keely Ringo to the Colts. Huge need all of a sudden at that corner position with them getting rid of Stephon Gilmore. Will McDonald to the Rams. They're willing to trade 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns. Their front seven, their defense in general, outside of Aaron Donald, is horrific. It's absolutely horrific now, especially with Wagner and Ramsey gone. They got no one on that defense other than Aaron Donald. Absolutely no one. It is startling to see. Seriously, go to like ESPN or Sport Track or whatever and just look at their defensive depth chart. It is startling to see. They have the potential to have the worst defense in the NFL next year. Like, thank God for Aaron Donald, because he might single-handedly make them a top 25 defense. But don't be shocked if they're the worst defense in the NFL next year. Then Seattle, John Michael Schmitz, best interior offensive lineman on the board. I think that's something that we're going to see them doing. They did a great job taking tackles last year. They got Damian Lewis. Now they need a guard and a center. And I think, boom, John Michael Schmitz plugs in, starting center day one. Mozzie Smith going to the Raiders. Keon White going to the Panthers. This is a guy that plays opposite Brian Burns. Yetur Gross-Matos was horrific last year in how he graded out. So you want to get somebody who can upgrade that position. Give Brian Burns a hand. Get Derek Brown maybe a little bit more space, especially on those third downs. Get those guys, get them off the field. Get the defense off the field. Get your offense back out there with C.J. Stroud and Adam Thielen and all these other guys you got now. With all the question marks surrounding Alvin Kamara, I took Alvin Kamara's clone, Jahmyr Gibbs, for the Saints. Sue me. Again, good solid running game, two running backs, good rotation. Alvin Kamara really was at his best when Mark Ingram was there as well. So you start bringing that dynamic back. And when you plug in a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs, who's almost the exact same player, it keeps the playbook the same. So it's a lot harder for defenses to really anticipate what it is that you're going to be doing, given on which running back you have on the field. Darnell Washington going to the Titans. He's basically an extra offensive lineman, as well as a threat in the passing game. I think that's perfect. Likelihood of Jets having both these picks come to draft night is unlikely, but as of now, don't really know what they're trying to do with Aaron Rodgers. So I got him taking Drew Sanders and Antonio Johnson. Take two, they get an extra linebacker, an extra guy in the defensive back. I think that that's really the best I could do with them with those 2 picks. Again, the drop off by the time you get to the 4th round for the Jets, because they don't have a 3rd round pick anymore, they won't really have too much access to either one of those positions for guys that can come in and make an instant impact. So take them now. Emmanuel Forbes to the Falcons. I mean, you need guys to play opposite AJ Terrell, help him out. You've got the pass rush, now you got to get guys on the back end. Luke Musgrave to the Packers. Again, weapons. Get weapons out there for Jordan Love. Tuli Tuipulotu to the Patriots. Again, sort of like Joey Porter. It just makes a lot of sense. The versatility. You can play him at the edge. You can play him at the interior. I think Belichick's really going to like that. And then Tyreek Stevenson, high upside corner to Washington. Again, just makes a lot of sense. You want to build that secondary. Kind of the same argument I made for the Eagles taking Devon Witherspoon. That division just keeps getting better and better. The weapons keep getting more dynamic, and you need corners to be able to keep up with what's happening on the offensive side of the ball with all these teams in that division, let alone all the teams in the NFL, really. Here are the Lions taking their corner, DJ Turner, big-time athlete. Plug him in. He doesn't have to start right away because you did get Emmanuel Mosley on a 1-year deal. You got Cameron Sutton to come and play the slot. And you got Jeff Okudah, who really improved last season. So you can work DJ Turner slowly into the lineup until he's comfortable. You don't really need to rush him. And if you pick up an injury, you got the depth now to be able to fill that up. BJ Ojolari, edge rusher, to the Steelers. This gives you a lot more options with Highsmith this year and going into next offseason. Zach Charbonnet going to the Bucks, just the best running back on the board. They need to improve that offense. They need to get younger on that offense. I could see them going heavy at wide receiver, maybe even on day 2 as well. Steve Avila, best interior offensive lineman to the Dolphins. This guy can play guard, or if you want to kick Connor Williams out to guard, Avila can play center. He really does need to improve on his run game. He was a horrific run blocker last year. It was just not great. So that's something he really needs to work on. But I think that in terms of his traits, he can be a good fit for the Dolphins, and then he just has to improve. They have to coach him up in that aspect of his game. Josh Downs going to Seattle. Long-term replacement for Tyler Lockett. Short-term, another weapon out there for that offense to really stay functional. Keanu Benton, interior defensive lineman, going to Chicago. They're a team kind of like the Rams, where it's like anything on that defensive line. They can double dip at both the interior and the edge in this draft and get quality contributors year one. Matthew Bergeron, really the last of last of the day one starters at the tackle position. You can make an argument for Blake Freeland, who graded out amazingly last year. Cody Mock just looks like a guy MCDC would love to have on his roster, and he fills a need in the interior offensive line. And he can be a guy you can swing out to tackle if you pick up an injury there. So there's the versatility. He can be offensive lineman number 6 in his rookie year, if anything. And then you got somebody where you can then not have to worry about maybe re-signing somebody like Jonah Jackson or Big V to play the other guard position. And yeah, it's a bit of a run on the interior guys here. Luke Weipler going to the Jags. This is a guard or a center, depending on what you think of Luke Fortner. Giants get Joe Tippmann. This is your center moving forward. Clark Phillips going to the Cowboys. You got Stephon Gilmore. You got Trayvon Diggs. You get Clark Phillips in there, can play in the slot, and allows you to then move on from not Anthony Brown. Who's the other one? I get them confused. Anthony Brown, and I'm blanking on this. Cowboys fans, whatever. Giants all the way, baby. Trenton Simpson, his fall from grace, stops here with the Bills. Julius Brent's going to the Bengals. Again, replenishing that cornerback room as they got expiring contracts with Chidobe Awuzie and Mike Hilton, who they're getting right now at bargain basement deals just because they front loaded their contracts initially. So I would look for them to maybe not re-sign them after this season. Cam Taylor-Britt fills in. Julius Brents gets to come and fill in. And, maybe they bring back Mike Hilton to play more of a traditional slot corner role. But I don't think they can't keep both Awuzie and Hilton, considering the contract demands they're going to have coming up with Higgins, Chase, and Burrow. Felix Anudike, I talked about this with their Benton pick. They can double dip at this position, get early contributors day one throughout this entire draft. Devin Ashane, running back, he really fits in with this offense. I think you put him in the backfield with Jalen Hurts on third down in particular. It's going to be really dangerous. And then Blake Freeland going to the Chiefs. They need a tackle. He can go in, play that right tackle position if they're dead set on Jawan Taylor playing left. And Blake Freeland did really grade out well. So when you get a dynamic quarterback back there with a dynamic offense the way that they run in Kansas City, it might be able to protect him, and then he might end up being one of the better tackles just based on the situation he's ending up in, and not so much, what's his upside, what's this, what's that. And there you have it. 63 picks, 64 slots. Let me know what you think about what I did for your team in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and thumbs up the video even if you hated it. It helps with the algorithms, helps push it out there, and maybe we'll see some opinions of people that might help me make better future videos for all of you. See you guys next time.